All right, everyone. Welcome once again to HIMSS Day 3 in its Seal Shield booth and the CleanTalk podcast, where we are talk about all sorts of the intersections of infection prevention and information technology. So I'm Norman Horn, your co-host of the podcast today. Normally, this is done by our CEO, Bradley Whitchurch.
There you
Speak of
go.
the devil.
There you go.
No. But today I get to be your gracious host, and I am so thankful to be able to introduce to you very briefly Eliezer Melendez and Digmary Torres Luis. So these folks are just they come to us from Puerto Rico. Hey, that's your cue. There we go, there we go, there we go. Excellent, excellent. So I'd like to for them, for the sake of our viewing audience later, to introduce themselves a little bit, tell them a little bit about your work and your roles in your respective hospitals and at Trinexus, and then
Yeah.
we'll get into some interesting elements of the technology and the work that they have been doing in infection prevention. So everybody, let's give a warm welcome to Digmary and Eliezer. Digmary, why don't you begin? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Bayamón.
Well, I'm Digmary Torres Ruiz. Like you said, I'm a clinical applications coordinator, which I think is the longest name for like a position. Basically, I'm on nursing informatics, but my background started as a respiratory therapist. So that's why I like the little clinical.
Yeah.
So it's more inclusive. And then I work for Bayamón Medical Center and Puerto Rico Children's Hospital, which was, it's my main, it's where I started. So it's really dear to me.
Awesome. Eliezer?
So I'm the co-founder and VP of sales for Trinexus. We've been in business for 22 years, and also I started as a developer. I also been at HIMSS board of director for 9 years, and finally was the Southern Chamber of Commerce president. So I've been around in business, and for the last 10 years, I've been working directly with hospitals on the healthcare.
Thank you, Eliezer. So you guys, you have an interesting partnership going on, but I think what we want to learn a little bit first is how you kind of got into this nursing informatics. Now you told us a little bit about that. You may even want to define that for our viewers at some point here, but in particular, as you have begun to kind of get into that field, what has that like kind of meant to you, and how have you seen that field even change over the last few years as it applies to what you're doing today in infection prevention?
This is, it's not funny, but it was,
It can be funny.
it,
That's
it was
okay.
kind of accidental, but it's actually great leaders. We have great leaderships within our hospitals. And when they were implementing the EHR, they really value the clinical aspect of it and they wanted our feedback. So as a respiratory therapist, they went around each department asking for people to give their feedback when with the implementation. And I started like that. Somehow, and I don't know how really, I ended up working with physicians, not the respiratory therapy side. And after I was there, it was like, let's do great things, let's keep moving. What else can you do? I had started my bachelor's degree in nursing and never finished it. And they were like, what's the next step? They really believe in building up their people. It's people caring for people. So it was like, that's the next step. Go ahead. And I finished my bachelor's. I'm doing my master's. So I guess I liked it. Now I'm
It
here.
works. Yeah.
And as far as nursing informatics, 5 years ago, it didn't exist within the island.
Yeah.
That wasn't a concept that as nurses we thought we could strive for. And now it's here. It's starting. It's slow, but we're making our presence. The nursing college, they're trying to implement it. There's nurses going outside of Puerto Rico for now, doing their nursing informatics masters. I work with one. I mean, he's great, and he's doing his master's for nursing informatics. But it's something that we actually do every day. We are here in the EHR. We have a unique situation where they all believe that EHR and IT needs to be merged. And many other hospitals don't have that. We're in the same office space. So we're always talking. It's not just like, hey, let me add a query. No, it's the whole thing. What computer is gonna be used? What, tablet, what phone, whatever. So that's what kind of made me understand what nursing informatics is really about.
That's excellent, and I think it would highlights the collaborative nature of it all
Yeah.
between IT and the nursing practitioners.
Yeah.
So there's also a collaboration that's occurring between even the technology partners and how do we provide the equipment and the capabilities so that you can all operate together. So let's talk about that a little bit. How does that kind of partnership typically begin and evolve over time between the technology partners and what we're doing in the hospital?
Yeah, there will be two things that I think. One is as a partner, you have to really understand the needs of the hospital and the industry. So that's first. The other thing is how we collaborate and get the needs of the hospitals and through nursing informatics personnel that are with foots in the ground and they know the needs of the customers. So if we get both together and we get understanding what are the issues are, then we can collaborate. So it's a matter of how we partners understand the needs, know the technology, what's out there, and how we can just get to the hospitals and the people involved that we can show them what are there and how we can help them just do solve the needs of the officer.
Digmari, anything you want to add to that?
No,
How
that's it, he, hit the nail in the head. It's about us knowing what we need and what the clinical staff actually needs and the patients, and then knowing and really listening to us about our needs and how the products fits into what we actually need or want for the hospitals.
so it sounds to me like even though Puerto Rico may be one, no man or woman is an island, right? So not bad joke. Sorry, I'll move. Yeah, yeah. The collaborative nature of all of it seems to be very evident in what you're doing, and that's really interesting to see. And this evolves in a multitude of ways, right? So as you guys have found opportunities to leverage data more readily, you begin to find out stuff, and that kind of led you, I think, into what do we do about mobile devices. So let's talk a little bit about mobile device disinfection and the cross contamination problem. So let's see. Oh, so just as a bit of background for our listeners and for our viewers here, obviously throughout a hospital, so many people are moving around, touching all sorts of different items, ranging from a doorknob to a cell phone to a patient bed to all
Mhm.
various types of clinical devices. That can be dangerous at times because if they
Correct.
become harbors of dangerous pathogens, then even one person going from one to another can contaminate a multitude of things in a hospital. So we have to be careful about that. You guys have to be careful about that. This then leads to a problem of what about mobile devices? The types of things that we handle. Everybody here has one on their person. It's ubiquitous at this point. We have all sorts of problems with these. What are like how did you guys come to realize that this was going to be the next big issue? And what did you guys like begin to start communicating to first to your nurse and nurse staff and so on, your clinical staff, and then to patients about it?
We the first hit point was that we were implementing an EHR oncology suite or our oncology department, pediatrics. And we had no problems there, right? Everything was good. They have great control about contamination and stuff. But now we're adding technology. And now we want the nurses to go into the patient's room with their tablets, their phones, so that it's easier for them to document and treat the patient. On top of that, the parents of the oncology floor unit are not really encouraged to be going outside, but when they do, they're scared because their kids are sick, are sicker than most. They're receiving chemo, they don't have their immune system up to date. So we kept hearing like moms, oh no, maybe somebody else can bring me the coffee because if I go outside and the keys and this and that. And we were at a conference and I saw the clean slate and Eliezer was there. And he was like, well, I was like, I think we're going to have this problem. We're also a teaching hospital. So now we're getting medical students, interns, residents. They all have their own devices. It's not even up to me. They want to bring their own devices. And I was like, Eliezer, I think this can, you know, this can be a problem for us. If I'm leaving everybody to bring their devices and moms are feeling scared after COVID, I'm a mom that had a kid during COVID and it's like, don't touch anything. No, 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 no. And you're out there blocking people so that they don't touch anything. And maybe we didn't think about that 5 years ago. So we needed a solution. And that's where Eliezer came in with the clean slate.
So the massive proliferation of devices was part of it.
Yes.
But then you also began to hear from the patients that they're even getting concerned. And so you have to come up with a solution. So you guys discovered the clean slate, you bring it in. To give a little bit of background for those who perhaps haven't seen this, we'll give a little video just to show you. The clean slate is a UV disinfection device that in 20 seconds, you can put a small device in, such as a cell phone or a set of keys or anything like that. You close the device there, and you can even demo this over at our table over here. It brings in some UV lights, irradiates the entirety of the surface, disinfecting the phone in just a cycle of about 20 seconds. While you're doing that, you take a moment, clean your hands up with hand sanitizer. By the time the clean slate is done, you can pick up, your hands are clean, you can pick up your device, and you can move on. So this is what they began to adopt over in Puerto Rico. This is it. So then they even took it a step further, not just believing that, taking our word for it, but they said, we're going to run our own study and prove to ourselves that this is working. And that's what we want to talk a little bit about next, because that was pretty exciting. And we love to see our customers who do these sorts of things. And we want to share with you guys what this looked like. So tell us a little bit about, how did you begin? Like, did you conceive of the study on your own, or was this a demand of clinicians? How did that even begin?
We had the clean slate already in place, right?
Yep.
And it became part of the nature. You go into the oncology floor, you need to put the phone in the clean slate, wash your hands, take it out. But we wanted to know if it worked. And our epidemiologist nurse one day random was like, hey, Digmary, come with me. I want to see the machine. I'm like, of course. She took me to the ED department and I was like, why are we here? Start touching everything. What? No, thank you. I don't want to do that. No. Start touching everything. Doors, handles, the elevator, everything. Yeah. I kid you not, I was like this the whole time. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get so sick. I'm not going to survive this. And even though we know those surfaces are clean, there's a lot of people moving throughout the hospitals. So once we got to the floor, we masked on and everything. And she's like, now touch your phone.
Uh-oh.
No. So I had to go with my phone like this. And she's like, try to make a call or send a text. So now both of my hands are dirty. And we took before she took the phone to the clean slate, she swapped it. We put it in the clean slate. I went through the whole process, washed my hands. Once it came out, she swapped it again. It's scary. It's very scary, the results.
Well, there are some studies that suggest that those of us who regularly use smartphones touch them on the order of something like 5,000 times a day. Now that includes, like, if I touch my phone like that, that's 5 times right there. But that is a lot of touches. And that means you have 5,000 chances on some level for cross-contamination. Yes. And in a hospital environment, that could be bad news. So you guys started up this study. You began with kind of a baseline. You started testing devices. This page up here, the thing, yes, is just an example of a report.
That's my phone.
This was her phone.
That's my phone.
And it may be a little hard to see, but at the bottom center there, you can see a few notes in it saying that they detected positive for all sorts of, basically bacterial burden. That is significant right off the bat.
The epidemiologist,
yeah,
she thought it would be funny to call me up and say, we have a problem. And I was like, what?
What kind of problem?
And she's like, the results came in.
Oh.
And I felt, I was like, oh my God, that's it. It doesn't work. She's gonna tell me it doesn't work, and I've been betting on this
Mm.
Yeah.
solution for my patients, and not even the nurses, the parents. And she's like, "We need to talk." I was like, "Just tell me what happened." No, it works. It's awesome.
Well, so
The
that was the next part, right? So when we did this study again, I started testing after you actually used the clean slate, and you
Yeah.
had a completely different result.
Yeah.
It went from tons of burden, we didn't even quantify it, too many to count sort of stuff, to
none,
none.
none.
Very significant, right?
Actually, the lab called you,
The,
right?
the lab called us
Yeah.
and told us to rerun it because they didn't believe it. They were like, "Okay, you did something wrong," and she's like, "No, no, I I was the one that did it." And they were like, "No, run it again." It came out the same, but I didn't touch as many surfaces that time.
This time they
I was like, "Okay, the elevator and the doors, and that's it." But it still came out with gram-positive bacteria, and then none whatsoever.
Yeah. So I mean, very significant,
Yes.
right? Because this is what we're trying to do in the clinical environment, is making sure that it is that level of clean at that point. So that's the power of UV disinfection. Then is the ability to really eliminate the proliferation of bacteria on devices such as this. This is fantastic, and it's so great that you guys were able to very distinctively run your own controlled experiment in order to do that.